There's a tax most retirees don't even know exists until it's too late. It's about your taxable brokerage account. Most people think tax planning ends when you retire, but that's when the real trap begins. If you don't plan around them, you could lose tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars throughout your lifetime. I'm Gabriel Shahin, Certified Financial Planner, and I'm here to walk you through some of the biggest tax traps people go through. But let me walk you through the top 3 most expensive tax mistakes you make with your brokerage accounts. We see retirees making this all the time. And mistake number 3 is the one that's the most biggest problems that people do that they think they're doing right. But first, let me take a step back. Let me give you a background. I first want to go over what a brokerage account is. It's an after-tax, non-retirement account. Some say it's a pay-as-you-go account. This is where you get a 1099 div for dividends on an annual basis, not a 1099-R, which is out of your retirement accounts. This is extremely important because this could be at Robinhood, Charles Schwab, Fidelity, just a brokerage account that you have that holds stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, cryptocurrencies, whatever it is. These are investment accounts that are there for you to invest in anything you want. Could even be cash if you really think about it. But here's the thing. Not everything in the brokerage account is taxed the same. Some investments actually have lower tax rates versus other that are higher tax rates. I'll give you a quick example. Interest on your bonds or on cash. This is taxed at the highest of rates. The benefit of this brokerage account, here's the secret. It's actually taxed at special, preferential tax treatment. What does that mean? You actually get benefits for investing in this account. When you take a look, as long as you hold on to your investment for at least a year, you're subject to long-term qualified dividends. Long-term capital gains could be fantastic. And here's the secret yet again. It's always at a lower rate than your regular ordinary income. This is a really big deal. When you take a look at these investments and you look at the two differences, this is where people mess up the most. So when you're actually breaking down your portfolio, your investments, you have to take a look at 2 things. Does it make money and go up? Or is it kicking you out income? I don't care what it is. Anything in the after-tax account, whether it's real estate, whether it's insurance products, or cash bank accounts, these are subject for certain specific taxation events. The benefit of stocks is, if you do it right, you could be getting these preferred pricings. So let's go and dig deep into these tax brackets. The first part is, as I'm going to share my screen here, is that the ordinary income tax brackets start at 10% and goes all the way up to 37%. Now the capital gain rates start at 0 and go up to 23.8. Now remember what I said earlier, the ordinary income is always lower than the preferred tax rates, which is where you have your brokerage account. That's why it's so important what you invest in. You see people wanting to do option strategies or these yield max items that are paying 15, 20, 50% dividends. These are taxed at ordinary income. And you also have to remember the goal of making money or investing is to make money. So when you put your money to work, you have to see how much not only you make on the money, but how much you keep from an after-tax basis. So let's use an example. You bought an investment for $1,000. It's now grown to $10,000. You have made $9,000 of capital gain. Now, if you held on to that investment for over a year, depending on your tax bracket, you pay a preferred tax rate. So the example of, let's say, 12% tax bracket. If you're in the 12% tax bracket, remember, the capital gains rate always has to be lower, especially if you held it for over a year. So you can't be at the 15% bracket that you see here. You have to be at the tax-free amount. Yes, that's right. That $9,000 of gains on the federal level would be tax-free. That's a really big deal that most people don't ever look at. This is why it blows my mind that some financial professionals never look at your tax return because you can actually sell an investment, rebuy it the very next second. And because it's not a tax loss harvesting and wash sale rule, which is a whole nother complication, you are able to realize that gain tax-free. You are resetting the bar on your cost basis. That is huge. So yet again, if you're in the 12% bracket, you are not paying 15%. You are tax-free. Versus if you're in the 22, 24% bracket, yet again, you're going to be in the 15% capital gain rate. Then capital gains goes up to 20% and even 23.8%. Now I circled this 3.8% because it actually kicks in a little bit lower. But the idea is these rates here are always going to be lower than your ordinary income rates over there. This is huge. People don't understand that. Why? Because our industry typically says, please consult with a tax advisor. Well, that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm here. And this is why it's huge, because most retirees make this mistake over and over again. Now that I gave a little bit of background, let's now go over the top 3 biggest mistakes retirees make with their brokerage accounts, their taxable brokerage accounts. Mistake number 1, stocks and bonds. People don't invest properly in their taxable brokerage accounts. It's crazy. They'll actually invest in bonds in their taxable brokerage accounts versus stocks, saying that they want to put their stocks in the retirement account. That is so backwards. There are so many reasons why stocks should always be invested in your taxable brokerage account. Why? Well, because of what we just talked about. Stocks are subject to preferred tax rates. The dividends are preferred rates, and what do stocks do? They grow in value. That's extremely important because we know bonds don't grow in value. They kick out income. And remember, the interest that they pay is taxed at the ordinary income rates, which is terrible for you. Now, I'm not here suggesting all your money should be invested in stocks, but if you have a 401k or an IRA account and your portfolio is 50% stocks, 50% bonds, if you have $500,000 in your 401k or IRA and $500,000 in your taxable brokerage, I would say put all your money in bonds in your retirement account and 100% of $500,000 in your taxable brokerage account. That is a no-brainer situation. And also, where would you rather have growth in? For example, in that $1 million example where you had $500,000 in IRA, $500,000 in taxable brokerage, if you had $1 million, where would you rather have it? In the taxable brokerage or the IRA? The answer is you would rather have that $1 million in a taxable brokerage. Why? Number 1, we just said it's preferred tax rates, and you only pay taxes on what you make. The IRA, the tax-deferred account, when you take it out, you pay taxes at the highest rates, which is ordinary income, and it's on everything, not just what you put in, but what you take out. Unlike the taxable brokerage, it's only on the growth. So it's huge. And in addition to that, a morbid one, another reason you want stocks there, we know it grows more, right? Well, also, if God forbid somebody were to pass away, it gets a step up in cost basis. Yet again, another reason you want stocks there. Because bonds, they don't really appreciate much, do they? No. With stocks, it does. So make sure you don't make that mistake, as I see people messing that up all the time. Mistake 2, municipal bonds. I hear it all the time. People say, I want to get tax-free interest in my taxable brokerage account. And they'll tell me, Gabriel, you said don't buy bonds in my taxable brokerage, buy stocks. Isn't that why everybody buys municipal bonds? It's logical what you're saying. But the answer is, if in that example, you have $1 million and your portfolio is 50% stocks, 50% bonds, and you sure enough have $500,000 in your IRA and $500,000 in your taxable brokerage, you don't want to have municipal bonds in your brokerage account. You want to still have stock. That is crucial. And the reason it's crucial is because your job is to grow your after-tax rate of return in the most tax-efficient way possible. So how does this work? Got to take a step back again. When you take a look at a bond, what do you think pays a higher rate? A corporate bond or a municipal bond? Assuming same risk, duration, maturity, so on. What do you think pays higher? The answer is it's a corporate bond. Why? Because the market already factors in the tax-free benefits of a municipal bond. Municipal bond might be at 4.5%, and the corporate taxable bond may be at 5%. The corporate bond will always pay higher based on what I was just saying. So, wouldn't you rather have a taxable corporate bond that pays higher? And oh, by the way, move it into your IRA. You actually want a higher rate of return, don't you? Well, if you put it in your 401k or your IRA, you don't pay taxes there until you take it out. Yet again, does it make sense for you to have municipal bonds in your taxable brokerage? Not at all. Stocks always make sense. So don't fall into that trap where municipal bonds make sense for you, especially if you're in a lower tax bracket. But yet again, even if you're in a high tax bracket, stocks still make more sense because of that preferred tax treatment. Mistake number 3. Here's the biggest mistake yet. It is tax loss harvesting. People don't know how tax loss harvesting actually works. They think that you go ahead and sell something for a loss and rebuy something similar, that offsets your gains for when you sell it later. That is bogus. It doesn't work like that. It's very poor to think that. Here's how it should work. People who make that comment don't understand the tax code. When you take a loss, you could write that off up to $3,000 a year on your ordinary income. Interesting. Versus writing it off on your capital gains. Here's an example. Let's start with an example of investing with $100,000 in January and letting it grow for the rest of the year. This example is during 2020. What happened in 2020? COVID happened in 2020. Assuming you were investing in the S&P 500, if you did nothing that whole year, now we do know the market ended up dropping to be negative 37%. So your 100,000 would have been 63,000. Just your look, right? But remember the rule, do nothing, hold off, think long term. Well, by doing that, your 100,000 would have grew to roughly $120,000. Great job. But with strategy, when the market drops, let's say at its first down 10%, you sell your Vanguard S&P 500 fund and you buy your Fidelity S&P 500 fund. You're not allowed to buy the same thing, so that is similar. Why is that so important? Because you just captured a $10,000 loss. That equates to a $10,000 write-off to you. Now, the market dropped at negative 37%, but nobody could time the bottom of the market. So let's just say you kept doing it at 10% tranches and you caught a 30% drop, which, oh, by the way, is $30,000. By doing this, you now have $30,000 that you get to write off against your ordinary income. Why is that important? By doing that, you get $1,200 in tax savings. Now that's $1,200 that doesn't show on your tax statement. That's $1,200 in tax savings, but here's the thing. Now, when you go to repay the tax, because remember, if you wrote off $10,000 and you started with $100K, your new basis is $90,000. Eventually you have to repay back what you wrote off. But now, take a look. You got to write it off against your ordinary income, correct? Well, that is $1,200 in savings, the 12% bracket. When you repay it, remember over here, you are in 12% tax-free when you repay back that capital gain. So you pay $1,200, pay nothing when you sell it later, yet again, you're ahead $1,200. $1,200 on a $100,000 portfolio, that's like being up 1.2%. Yet again, a 1.2% you never see in your investment statement, but you see in your overall wealth accumulation through tax savings. That's the right way to do it. The second example, same thing. Let's just say you're in the highest tax bracket. You write off 37% of the same 10,000 number. That's $3,700 you save in taxes. You repay the tax later. Here's the 23.8% bracket. So let's just say 2,300 or 2,400 to make it simple. You're still ahead $1,300. Any way you slice it, because now you know the tax rules, you come out ahead. That's how it really works. This is how and what you should understand of true tax loss harvesting and what you should be taking advantage of. So giving a quick recap. Number one, you want to make sure that you're investing in stocks and bonds in the right places. Number two, you want to also avoid that municipal bonds, especially if it goes against your allocation. And number three, understand the tax rules, the tax laws, and make sure you're properly tax loss harvesting. This is crucial to plan during your working career, as you can defer gains until retirement and pay zero taxes later depending on your situation. If that's not fantastic tax planning, I don't know what is. Hopefully this video was helpful. My job is to go over items that puts money in your pocket. These are tax hacks that most retirees don't know about until it's too late. Please follow, like, subscribe, and don't forget to comment below.